I met Daniel on a Tuesday night in early autumn. The air was cool and the city smelled like rain and coffee. I was sitting alone at a quiet cafe, trying to convince myself that I didn't miss my ex, when he walked in. Tall, neatly dressed, with eyes that carried both confidence and warmth. He smiled at me, just once, and that was enough. I don't believe in fate, but that night it felt like something, or someone, had decided I'd waited long enough to be loved again. He asked if he could sit at my table because the cafe was full, though it wasn't. I said yes anyway. His voice was low and calm, the kind that makes you lean in just to hear more. We talked for 2 hours and 30 minutes, about books, travel, music, and how strange it is that two people can cross paths by accident and still feel like they were meant to. When he walked me to my car, he didn't ask for my number. He said, if we're supposed to see each other again, we will. I thought it was a line. But 2 days later, he found me on Instagram. Daniel was everything I thought I'd never find again. Stable, charming, emotionally present. He worked in real estate, or so he said, and lived in a nearby town. He wasn't flashy, didn't brag, but he had this quiet confidence, the kind that made me feel safe. After our third date, he started calling me every night around 10 p.m. and 15 minutes, just to say goodnight. I told my friends, he's different, and I meant it. He met my parents after 2 months. My mother whispered later, he seems like a good man. That mattered to me. He made small gestures that meant everything, showing up with coffee before work, leaving notes in my bag, sending photos of sunsets with captions like, wish you were here. I was falling deeply, and for the first time in years, I didn't fight it. There were moments, though, when he'd disappear for a few hours or even a full weekend. He said it was work, property showings, clients, or sometimes visiting his mother who lived out of town. I didn't question it at first. Everyone needs space. Everyone has a life outside of love. But sometimes his excuses didn't make sense. One Saturday, he said he was in Krakow showing a house, but when I called, I heard what sounded like traffic from our city in the background. He laughed it off, said he was near the train station. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. When he asked me to move in with him after 6 months, I said yes without hesitation. The apartment was beautiful, minimalist, filled with natural light and the faint scent of cedar. It felt like a place built for peace. He had already decorated half of it. The other half, he said, was waiting for me, to make it ours. We settled into a rhythm that felt like forever. Morning coffee together, late dinners, lazy Sundays. He had a way of making everything intimate, even silence. I remember once, lying next to him, tracing the faint scar on his chest. I asked how he got it. He said, an accident, long ago. Then he turned and kissed me, ending the question before it became a memory. My friends told me I was glowing. I thought I was too. But there were things I didn't see, or maybe things I didn't want to. Like how his phone was always face down, or how he'd never answer calls in front of me. He said work clients could be demanding. Sometimes he'd get a message late at night and step out to take the call in the hallway. Once I followed quietly, just to hear his tone. His voice was softer, almost tender. I couldn't make out the words. When he came back, I pretended to be asleep. Still, I convinced myself it was fine, that love meant trust, that doubt was a poison I didn't want to drink. One Friday evening, around 8 p.m. in 2 minutes, we were at a restaurant celebrating our 1-year anniversary. He gave me a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small heart. You're my home, he said. I felt tears welling up. But as I reached to hug him, I noticed something strange. A faint tan line on his ring finger. I laughed nervously, teasing, you hiding a secret marriage? He chuckled too, a little too quickly. Old habit, he said. I used to wear a family ring. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to ruin the night. Weeks later, that detail wouldn't leave my mind. A tan line doesn't last that long. I started noticing other things. His shirts smelling faintly of perfume I didn't wear, his phone always on silent mode, and once, an unfamiliar woman's name appearing on his smartwatch. He said she was a colleague. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. The first real crack came when he planned a business trip for 3 days and 2 nights. He said he'd be out of service, somewhere rural, closing a deal. But that same weekend, my friend Marta sent me a photo from a shopping mall. Daniel was there. Same jacket, same watch. Holding hands with a woman I didn't recognize. The caption read, "This your guy?" My heart didn't break right away. It froze. I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe his twin brother, maybe an illusion. But deep down, I knew. I called him that night over and over, no answer. When he finally called back the next morning, his voice was steady. "I told you I'd be out of service," he said. "I mentioned the photo." There was a long silence, then laughter. "You're being paranoid," he said. "Don't let jealousy destroy what we have." That night I cried until I couldn't breathe. The next morning I apologized to him. I told myself love was forgiveness, not suspicion. He comforted me, whispered that we were fine. But a part of me knew something had shifted. The man who once felt like home suddenly felt like a stranger wearing his face. And then, one day, everything changed. I received a message request on Facebook from a woman named Laura. Her profile picture showed a warm smile, and next to her Daniel, his arm around her waist. The message read, "Hi, I think we need to talk. I believe we're both married to the same man." My hands went numb. The world blurred. Every memory, every touch, every word suddenly felt like fiction. I stared at her message for what felt like forever before replying with just one word. "What?" That was the moment my world cracked open. The man I thought I knew, the man I trusted, wasn't who he said he was. And what came next would make me question everything, not just love, but my own sanity. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at Laura's message, reading it again and again until the words burned into my eyes. "I believe we're both married to the same man." Married? The word didn't make sense. I wasn't married to Daniel, not legally, but emotionally, completely. I was his partner, his future, his everything, or so I thought. At 7 a.m. and 10 minutes I called him. No answer. I called again at 7 a.m. and 15 minutes. Still nothing. I messaged Laura instead, my hands trembling. "Can we talk?" She replied almost instantly. "Yes, I think you deserve to know the truth." We met that afternoon in a quiet park outside the city. It was cold, and the sky hung low, like it knew something terrible was about to be said. Laura was beautiful in a quiet way, soft brown hair, tired eyes, polite smile. When she saw me, her face changed. Not with anger, not even jealousy, but with pity. "You must be Anna," she said softly. "He told me about you, but not the truth." We sat on a bench. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a picture, Daniel in a navy suit standing beside her in a wedding photo. "We've been married 3 years, she said. "We have a daughter. She's 2. I felt like the air had been sucked out of me. I couldn't breathe. 3 years, a child. My mind spun backward, connecting every gap, every lie, every sudden trip. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, I whispered, "He told me he was single." Laura nodded slowly. "He told me you were just a colleague. Someone from work he was mentoring." Her voice broke. "I believed him for months, until I found your pictures. You and him, Paris, the anniversary dinner, the necklace. He bought me the same one." I covered my face with my hands. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. He had been living 2 lives, 2 homes, 2 women, 2 versions of himself. And somehow, he made each one feel like the only one that mattered. Laura sighed. "I didn't want to believe it either, but I found hotel receipts, messages, and last week he told me he had to work late. I followed him instead. He went to your apartment." Her eyes filled with tears. "I sat outside for 2 hours and 30 minutes, watched the lights go out. I knew he was inside." I couldn't speak. Every memory now felt poisoned. The breakfasts, the laughter, the promises, each one a lie. I thought of his tan line, his excuses, his sudden trips. How had I not seen it? How could I have loved a man capable of such cruelty? Laura reached out and touched my hand. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know this hurts. I didn't come to fight. I just needed to know if it was true, if he was really doing this to both of us." I nodded numbly. "It's true," I whispered. "He told me I was his only one." We talked for hours. She told me about their life, how they met at a charity event, how he'd been charming, thoughtful, protective, the same man I knew. She said he'd changed in the last year, more distant, more secretive. Always on his phone, always traveling. That was when he started seeing me. By the time I got home, the sun had set. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, waiting for him. At 9 p.m. and 45 minutes, he called. "Hey, baby," he said softly, like nothing had happened. My voice was steady, too steady. "Daniel," I said, "we need to talk." He paused. "About what?" I swallowed. "About Laura." There was silence. A long, heavy silence. Then a low exhale. "So," he said quietly, "you've met." I felt my stomach twist. "You're married, Daniel. You have a child." He didn't deny it. He didn't even sound surprised. "It's complicated," he said finally. "Complicated," I shouted. "You lied to me. You lied to her. You lied to her. You lied to everyone." He sighed. "I never meant to hurt you, Anna. I didn't plan this. I just fell in love with you." His words cut like glass. "Then why didn't you leave her?" I demanded. "Why pretend?" "Because I couldn't," he said, voice cracking for the first time. "My daughter, she needs me. And Laura, she depends on me. But when I'm with you, I feel alive, like I can breathe again." I wanted to hate him. I wanted to hang up, but I couldn't, because even in that moment, some part of me still loved him, and that was the cruelest part of all. He begged me not to tell Laura everything. "Please," he said, "don't destroy her. Don't destroy us. I'll fix this. I just need time." Time. As if that could undo betrayal. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the necklace he gave me, the one he also gave her. I took it off and placed it on the table. It looked so small, so meaningless now. I whispered to myself, "He's not the man I loved. He never was." Over the next few days, I avoided his calls. He showed up once at my apartment, banging on the door, pleading. I didn't open. Through the door, he said, "You are my real home, Anna. Don't turn your back on us." I almost believed him again. That was his gift, his curse. He knew how to sound sincere, even when his soul was rotten with lies. Laura and I kept in touch. Two women bound by the same heartbreak. She was stronger than I expected. She said she was filing for separation. "He can't keep living this double life," she said. "It ends now." I admired her courage, but I also feared what he might do. Daniel wasn't violent, but he was manipulative. He knew how to twist stories, how to make guilt feel like love. A week later, he texted me one last time. "If you walk away now, you'll regret it. You and I are meant to be." I didn't reply. I deleted the message. But his words lingered like smoke. Then, one morning, Laura called me in tears. "He's gone," she said. My heart stopped. "What do you mean gone?" She took a shaky breath. "He disappeared, took money from our joint account. His phone's off. No one knows where he is." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the counter. He had vanished, leaving behind two women, two broken hearts, and a trail of lies deep enough to bury the truth forever. For weeks I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. in 5 minutes, imagining him walking through the door, smirking, saying it was all a misunderstanding. But he never came back, not to me, not to her. It was as if Daniel had never existed. And yet, part of me couldn't let go. Because when you love someone like that, completely, blindly, it's not just them you lose, it's yourself. The version of you that believed in forever. The version that thought love was always good. But I was about to learn that sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. It breaks you first. Because 1 month later, I received a letter. No return address. Just my name, written in handwriting I knew too well. Inside was a single photograph. Daniel, standing beside another woman I didn't recognize, holding a child. On the back, 2 words, "I'm sorry." I stared at that photograph for what felt like hours. Daniel, smiling that same gentle smile, the one that used to melt me, standing beside another woman, holding another child. It wasn't Laura, it wasn't me. It was someone else entirely. The handwriting on the back, "I'm sorry," was undeniably his. I could feel it in the shape of the letters, the small, deliberate curl in his Y's. My whole body went cold. For a long time, I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. My mind was trying to make sense of it, to build some logical thread through the madness, but there wasn't one. This wasn't just a double life. It was something darker, something deliberate, a pattern. I thought of Laura, of the nights we stayed on the phone trying to untangle his lies. She believed she'd been his only wife. I thought I'd been his only love. And now this third woman, who was she? At 8 a.m. and 20 minutes, I called Laura. "He has another family," I whispered. "There's someone else." There was silence on the line, then a faint broken sound, a gasp or a sob. "Send me the picture," she said. I did. An hour later she called back, her voice trembling. "I don't recognize her. But the child, Anna, that child looks like him. The same eyes." I pressed my fingers against my temples. "What kind of man does this?" I muttered. "What kind of heart can split itself so many ways?" That day I couldn't eat, couldn't work. I sat by the window, the photo on the table, watching the world go on as if mine hadn't just collapsed again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, the way he used to say my name like it meant something. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was whisper, "Why?" That night, Laura came over. She brought wine, but neither of us drank it. We just sat in silence for a while, the photo between us. "Do you think he's dangerous?" she finally asked. I hesitated. "No," I said, "but he's capable of anything." She nodded slowly. "I hired a private investigator." I looked at her, stunned. "You what?" She met my eyes. "I need to know who he really is, his real name, if that's even it, where he came from, what else he's hiding." Part of me wanted to tell her to let it go, to walk away and rebuild what was left of her life. But another part, the part still raw and hungry for answers, needed to know too. "I want in," I said quietly. "If he fooled me, fooled you, he might be fooling others. We deserve the truth." Over the next few days, we gathered everything we had: photos, emails, receipts, messages. The investigator's name was Marek. He was calm, methodical, the kind of man who didn't react to emotion, only facts. He listened to our story without judgment. When we finished, he said, "Men like this don't just disappear, they relocate." He asked for a week. 7 days of silence. 7 days where I couldn't stop checking my phone, my heart racing every time a notification appeared. Then, on the 8th day, Merrick called. "I found him," he said simply. "Laura and I met him in a small office downtown." Merrick spread several documents on the desk. "His name isn't Daniel Noack," he began. "That's an alias. His real name is Dariusz Wojtek. Born in Wrocław, 1982. Married first in 2009. Divorced. Then again in 2015. Never divorced. Then another civil marriage under his alias in 2018. I felt the blood drain from my face. "So, he's married to at least 2 women?" "3, Merrick said. "Possibly 4. He's moved cities multiple times, changed jobs frequently, used different versions of his name. Real estate, insurance, finance, all legitimate enough to build trust." Laura's voice shook. "How does someone live like that?" Merrick shrugged slightly. "People like him are predators of emotion. They don't see love as connection, they see it as control. He probably believes he loves each woman in his own twisted way." I felt sick. Everything I'd built with him, every word I'd believed, every memory that once felt sacred, all of it had been part of his performance. "Does he have a record?" I asked. Merrick nodded. "Fraud charges, small ones. He's careful. He never stays long enough for real consequences." He paused, then added, "If you want to pursue this legally, you can, but it will take time. And you'll have to face him." The thought made my skin crawl. Face him. Look into those eyes again. Hear that voice. I wasn't sure I could survive it. But Laura, she was determined. "I'm pressing charges," she said. "Even if it takes years, he's not doing this again." I admired her strength, but inside I was breaking, because part of me still missed him. Missed the warmth, the laughter, the feeling of being seen. That's what made it so hard. I wasn't just grieving a liar, I was grieving the version of him I thought was real. Weeks passed. The police got involved. Laura filed a report. I gave my statement. The third woman, the one from the photo, was eventually identified. Her name was Natalia. She lived in another city, unaware of us, unaware of everything. When the police reached her, she refused to believe it. "You're lying," she said, according to the report. "My husband is a good man. I understood her. I've been her. Love blinds you that way. It builds walls around reason and calls it devotion." Months went by. I tried to rebuild my life. I moved apartments, changed my number, deleted old photos. But healing doesn't move in straight lines. Some nights, I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in 40 minutes, certain I'd heard his voice in the hallway. Sometimes I caught myself smiling at a text that never came. Then, one morning, the police called. "We've located him," I said. "He's in custody." My heart pounded. "For what?" I asked. "Fraud," the officer replied. "Multiple counts. He used false identities, forged contracts, and drained joint accounts." I thanked them, hung up, and sat there in silence. I should have felt relief, justice, closure. But instead, I felt hollow. Because catching him didn't erase the love I gave freely. It didn't return the years I lost or the parts of myself I had to kill to survive him. A few weeks later, Laura and I attended the hearing. He was there, in a gray suit, thinner, paler, but still wearing that same disarming smile. When our eyes met, something inside me cracked. He looked at me and mouthed, "I'm sorry." The same words on that photo, the same lie he'd always used to keep me tethered. The judge spoke, papers shuffled, and the world moved forward. But I barely heard any of it. I was watching him, the man who once promised forever, and realizing I never really knew him at all. When it was over, Laura squeezed my hand. "It's done," she said, but it wasn't. Not really, because the ghosts he left behind didn't vanish with his sentence. They lingered, in songs, in smells, in quiet mornings when I'd still reach for someone who wasn't there. And yet, as I walked out of that courtroom, I felt something shift. Not peace, not yet, but power. I had faced the man who shattered me, and I was still standing. What I didn't know then was that the hardest part wasn't over. The truth I thought I finally had would soon unravel again, revealing something even darker, something that would make me question not just him, but myself. After the trial, I told myself I was done. No more questions, no more tears, no more trying to understand a man who built his life out of lies. But healing isn't a straight line, and closure isn't something you find in a courtroom. It's something you build slowly from the wreckage. For months, I kept my distance from everything connected to Daniel or Darius, or whatever name he had chosen for himself that week. I started therapy. I got a new job in another district, moved into a smaller apartment with bare walls and sunlight that didn't remind me of him. I even changed my hair, as if that could erase the version of me who had believed so blindly. But every now and then something would drag me back. A familiar cologne in a store, a man laughing on the street in that same low tone, the sound of keys on a table. Those moments made my chest tighten, made the world tilt. You don't just stop loving someone because you learn they're a monster. Your heart doesn't obey logic. It keeps looking for the ghost that hurt it. One evening, around 8 p.m. and 11 minutes, I received a message from an unknown number. Just 2 words again, "Thank you." I froze. No name, no photo, no context. The message was deleted seconds later. I knew it was him. Somehow, I just knew. The timing, the phrasing, the emptiness behind it. I didn't reply. I just stared at the blank chat until the screen dimmed. I called Laura the next day. She hadn't heard from him. She sounded stronger, calmer. "He's in prison," she said. "He can't reach us." But her voice wavered slightly when she said it, as if she wasn't entirely sure. A week later, I found out she was right not to be. He wasn't in prison anymore. Released early for good behavior. It shouldn't have scared me. He wasn't violent, I told myself. He was just broken. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow on the wall looked like a man waiting. 3 nights later, I saw him. Not up close, just a silhouette standing across the street from my building under a street lamp. He didn't move, didn't wave, just watched. I froze at the window, my breath catching. When I blinked, he was gone. The next morning, I told myself I imagined it. Trauma can play tricks on you. You start seeing ghosts in daylight. But then, strange things started happening. A bouquet of white lilies appeared at my door with no note. My mail started arriving opened. My neighbor mentioned seeing a man asking if I still lived in the building. She described him perfectly. I filed a police report. They said they'd look into it. But I knew what that meant. Another file, another forgotten woman with a story too messy to care about. I tried to keep living. I met someone new. Tomas, quiet and patient, the opposite of Daniel in every possible way. He never pushed, never demanded, just existed beside me, gently. I told him I wasn't ready for love, and he said, "That's okay. I'll wait." For a while, I started to believe in peace again. But peace doesn't survive when your past refuses to die. One night, I came home to find my apartment door slightly open, just a few centimeters. My heart dropped. I pushed it slowly, my hand shaking. Everything looked normal, the lights, the furniture, except for one thing, the necklace. The gold heart Daniel gave me, the one I'd thrown away months ago. It was lying on the kitchen table, clean, shining, waiting. I didn't call the police right away. I just sat down and stared at it. How had he gotten in? How did he even find me? I moved out 2 days later. No forwarding address, no trace. I changed my phone number again. Laura and I lost contact around that time. She said she needed to move on completely, and I respected that. But deep down, I knew she was afraid too. Months passed. I didn't see him again. I started to breathe easier, to trust the quiet. Until one morning, I received a letter. No return address, no name, just a single page. Inside was a photo of me and Tomasa, taken from a distance in the park. On the back, the same handwriting as before. You look happy. That was the moment I realized Daniel's greatest weapon wasn't love or lies, it was control. Even from afar, even without touching me, he could still make me afraid, still remind me he existed. I went to the police again. This time they took me seriously. They found no fingerprints, no traceable sender. He was a ghost. Careful, invisible, always one step ahead. Tomasz wanted to protect me. He installed cameras, changed the locks, even offered to move with me, but I told him no, because I knew running wouldn't end it. Daniel didn't want me back, he wanted power. He wanted to see if he could still pull my strings. So I made a decision. I stopped hiding. I posted my story online. Not names, not places, just truth. About emotional predators, about manipulation, about the slow kind of abuse that doesn't leave bruises but scars the soul. It went viral. Thousands of messages poured in from women who'd lived the same nightmare. For the first time, I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't just his victim, I was his undoing. Weeks later, someone sent me an email. Anonymous, no subject line, no text, just an attachment. It was a scanned newspaper article from another city. The headline read, "Man found dead in abandoned motel, suspected suicide." The photo was grainy, but I recognized him instantly. Daniel, or Darius, or whatever name he died with. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph, just silence. Because even in death he left questions I'd never answer. That night I sat on my balcony looking at the city lights. For the first time in years I felt something close to peace. Not because justice had been done, but because I'd finally stopped searching for reasons. Some people aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to be survived. Love doesn't always save. Sometimes it reveals. It shows you what you refuse to see, not in them, but in yourself. The longing, the blindness, the ache to be chosen even when it hurts. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: love without truth is just illusion, and illusions, no matter how beautiful, always break. And when they do, you finally see the person you were meant to love all along, yourself.